Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? It's one of the highlights of my week as we put on our scouting binoculars, we get out our notepads and pen, and we jet set ourselves around European and world football, looking for the hottest prospects, the biggest talents that hopefully Celtic are going to get their hooks into and sign in this summer transfer window as Brendan Rodgers looks to reinforce the squad and kick us up the levels, kick us up those gears of progression into the next season where we've got the hopes of retaining the title, going after another treble, and maybe even daring to dream about going that one step further in European football. And so far in this series, it's been quite European focused, so I thought I would take this opportunity. This week we've not had the rumour mill to lead us anywhere, but I thought we would spend some air miles on this one and we would fly over to the US of A and we would be looking at the top prospects, the top talents that we could see Celtic going after from the MLS. MLS isn't a league that we've did a lot of business from, but as you'll remember in the last summer window where we're quite close to signing Matthias Bogus, and we've actually sold a fair amount of players over there. And the way MLS operates, I would say and suggest we've got quite strong communication links with them. And to be quite frank with you, when a team from Europe goes to MLS, all bets are off. Everyone in MLS, with the exception of those veterans that are there for their swan song, they want to get to Europe, they want to play for important clubs, they want to win titles, they want to play Champions League football. So we go into this market as a bit of a bully boy. You know, we can go in there, spend the transfer fees required for all of these players, and, you know, wages, maybe there's a bit of a discussion with one or two of them, but we shouldn't be too far away considering we have the potential to offer these players a stepping stone into Europe, which is where every ambitious player sees their career ending up, of course. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section as usual, guys, on this one, and let me know hot takes and main feelings and first impressions on the players that we're previewing in this one. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it, because just before, as we get into the first kind of scouting recommendation or player to watch out for or whatever, before we kind of get into that, or we'll kind of wrestle with it at the same time, I want to kind of highlight something we were chatting about on the This Is Axom podcast that goes out on a Friday night. I was very thankful to be invited onto that by Paul John alongside Asim and Tino. We had a great time doing that. But part of that discussion, and I recommend you check it out in its entirety, but part of that discussion was about the reserve league or how to develop talent in the league, etc, etc. And no matter what your opinion is on all of that stuff, for me, one of the top solutions, one of the top things that Celtic should be making headway with to try and reinforce the football network that we are not really a part of at the moment, is partnering up with other clubs for mutual gain. You know, they can get some players from us, we can take some players from them, and it can be one of these kind of harmonious sort of relationships. And I think MLS, a lot of people see it as fertile hunting ground. You know, there's a lot of expats over there, thousands of Celtic fans already in situ, of course. And if we were to link up with any MLS club, I think the number one club we should be looking to try and bridge some sort of relationship with would be the Philadelphia Union. And there's a few kind of non-footballing reasons why a link like that might work out quite well, and I'm sure you guys in the comment section can tell me all about it, of course. But quite simply for me, they are the only club in MLS that has a proficient youth development strategy, a policy they've consistently been bringing through players over the last 5 or 6 years that have made successful trips to Europe, as well as being like good MLS players, and even one or two of them now are starting to catch the interest, starting to get the attention of the big players around European football. You've maybe heard of Kevin Sullivan here, the 14, just turned 15-year-old that's already signed for Manchester City, and he is now getting himself into the first team picture at the Philadelphia Union without breaking through and really being like a first team player as yet. He is only 15, like I say, but he follows off the back of players like Mark McKenzie, who we can now see formerly in Belgium, now in France, Brendan Aronson, who's a name that will probably be familiar to a lot of you guys, having played in the Bundesliga and in the Premier League, as well as his brother Paxton Aronson, who's been in the Bundesliga and had a pretty good season in the Eredivisie this year. And funnily enough, Kevin Sullivan, who's on his way to Man City when he turns 18 or 21 or whatever it is, also has a brother still currently playing for the Philadelphia Union. And I know what you're going to say when you see this guy's name. You'll say, Quinny, you're just being biased. You're just after a Quinn to get in the hoops. And yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that. But Quinn Sullivan, older brother of Kevin Sullivan, is a fantastic midfielder that we've seen break through the Philadelphia Union ranks over the last couple of years, really since being like a 17, 18-year-old himself. He was kind of seen as one of the emerging wonder kids. And now, at 21, a bit of the hype has died down. But this guy has got proper techers. He's a really busy midfielder as well that is very versatile and can play in a number of different positions. I would see him for us fitting into a position of being in our main midfield three that has that versatility of travelling across the pitch, but is quite, I would say he's much more of an attack-minded based player, so is happy to travel across the pitch, break the lines, and can play left or right, so very versatile and a player we could use in a number of different ways. Over the last 12 months, he's had 32 starts, 6 goals and 10 assists, which is none too shabby, considering he's never been the main man in Philadelphia. Now, he's actually due a bit of an upturn, right? Because one of the players is actually the next one we'll chat about who Philly have had, I think it should be our top midfielder pick if we went to MLS for a midfielder. But they've recently also sold their actual best player, Gazdag his name is, to the Columbus Crew. So Quinn Sullivan has now went from being like third or fourth on the pecking order in terms of like starting and quality and overall kind of, carrying the burden of the team, to very quickly over like a 12-month, 6-month period, he's now been elevated right into the first team picture as being one of their main guys, and I think we're only going to see him kicking on over the next couple of months. So this is a player that we can be actively scouting right now as we watch the Philadelphia Union kind of go through their MLS season, as it were, with Quinn Sullivan being one of the main guys. He's won the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship. He sadly didn't quite make the Philadelphia Union team that won the Supporters' Shield a few years ago. And Philadelphia normally, in my experience of being an MLS supporter from a distance, have been one of the rubbish teams for like 15, 20 years. But over the last 5 years, they had this moment where they kind of put a lot more effort, like more than any other team in MLS, into their pipeline, into their youth development, into harnessing all the local area talent they could and hoover them up into their first team, and it's paid massive dividends for them, it really has. 19 caps under 20 level for America with 7 goals. His contract is up in 2027, but there's an option of a further year, and rated at €4.5 million. He can, like I say, he can play everywhere across the front line, can play in midfield. He's even played up front for Philly in the past. This is a guy that I think has a high ceiling of potential. Only really has his MLS and his American Youth International credentials to go on. But from what we've seen with the Philly youth products that have already moved into Europe, the ones that have football IQ and have displayed top-level takers, like Aronson went to Salzburg, Leeds United, Union Berlin, Paxton, like these guys have transitioned well. They're not just like good in MLS and look like good athletes that can play football. They're actually proven that they can go into Europe and mix it with some really high caliber opposition, as well as fighting their place out in a really high quality team. And I think at €4.5 million, if we got this done for like under $7 million, I think this would be a coup. I think it really would be an exciting transfer for a guy at 21 who can only get better and has already shown massive potential. Now, he's not actually a Philadelphia Union player anymore. He's actually recently just moved to the Houston Dynamo as their main player, and that is Jack McGlynn, who's also 21, and the guy that kind of kept Quinn Sullivan in the shadow for the last couple of years. Much more of a deep line playmaker, so he's got a bit more of a defensive nous, a bit more of defensive credentials, as it were. But make no mistake about it, he is an outlet, he is artillery for the Houston Dynamo and for Philadelphia Union. He has been one of the main players on both sides of the ball. Not just being on the ball dictating play, but winning it back, as well as whipping balls into the channels for counter-attacks, never mind taking set pieces, free kicks, corners, all that kind of thing. He really is a proper Swiss Army knife of a midfielder, can play all across the place no matter where his team need him. Houston have actually gotten to the position now where they're trying to play him like right attacking mid, and just try and like give him tons of space on one side of the pitch, so that when they get him the ball, he can just do what he needs to do to try and find some sort of opening for the team, because they are super reliant upon him. When he was previously at Philly, he was playing left mid, he was playing defensive mid as well. He's never really played number 10, but really every other kind of main midfieldy position you can think of is somewhere you could see this guy excelling and doing well in. And I think not only doing well at Philadelphia, who's like his hometown club, the team that's brought him in, familiar surroundings and all that kind of stuff, familiar play style, etc. But to move to the Houston Dynamo, who, make no mistake about it, are terrible, very low caliber squad. They've not got a bad set of results over the last 4 games against some decent teams, got to give them that, right? But make no mistake about it, he's very close to being a one-man team for them in defensive midfield, but playing right mid. And he is also rated at €4.5 million. He's got 4 senior caps for America to his name with 1 goal. His contract expires December this year, and Houston have got an option for a further 2. So this is a move that, I'm not worried that he only signed for them in February this year. The way MLS contracts work, etc., that's not really a new binding situation, number 1. And number 2, like I mentioned to you in the intro, if Europe comes calling, these guys pack their bags and fly. And if we're after a midfielder with high potential, with already a high kind of proven level of quality and great physical attributes, again, very strong, quick without being electric, a little bit more so than Quinn Sullivan, I think Jack McGlynn would be an absolute tap-in, would be a fantastic bit of business to do. Quite similarly, I feel a similar way to Obed Vargas, who is a young wonder kid, really defensive midfielder that's been breaking through at the Seattle Sounders. Seattle Sounders, generally speaking in MLS terms, are like the old school kind of Man United or the Bayern Munich or whatever. They're generally like one of the strongest teams, really, no matter what. They can have like a bit of a quiet transfer window, but they're always getting to playoff semi-finals. They're always going really deep in the competition. One of the most decorated clubs there. They've recently just won their first Champions League, in which Obed Vargas was breaking into the first team at that point. They've had some players age, get older, move on, as well as some other guys kind of move in and out the picture, and he's really moved in now to being their main defensive midfielder, their main midfield playmaker from deep. And at 19 years of age, he is getting some incredible numbers, some incredible statistics at one of the big clubs that has some degree of pressure in playing in it. They've got some high-octane derbies as far as MLS goes, and like I said, they compete in Champions League on the regular basis as well. So he's maybe not quite got those different strings to his bow that Jack McGlynn or Quinn Sullivan has, but he's got seriously high potential. Currently rated at €6 million. He's a Champions League winner, like I mentioned already. And his contract is up at the end of this year. The club do have an option for a further year, but another kind of like seal of quality that should make you kind of take this one seriously is he's now been capped by Mexico. And whenever Mexico and America are fighting over a player, it normally does mean something in that region, and especially if they do end up playing for Mexico, because generally it's kind of changed over the last 5 years or so, but Mexico has been seen as way above America in the food chain and the pecking order, more likely to go to World Cups, more likely to win Gold Cups and go further in World Cups, that sort of thing. His name's Obed Vargas, so maybe he feels a bit Mexican, but generally it's the ones that have the choice of what side of the border to play on. It's normally the better players that choose Mexico, and again, that's maybe not always the case over the last couple of years, but that's a good hallmark of quality if Mexico are looking to bring him into their team. Another midfielder I'm a massive fan of, who I actually think could be our forward solution potentially, is Pedro Vite. Pedro Vite is 23 years of age. He's an Ecuador international. He plays in that same generation, that same team as like the Moses Caicedos that won the youth Copa Libertadores, I think is what it's called, which is why I'm getting tongue twisted on it. And he's been really proficient over the last 12 to 18 months at centre mid, although played a lot of his career as a centre forward. And a big part of the reason I like Pedro Vite is because the engine he's got to play midfield is the same engine he was using when he plays up front. And if you think about who we're trying to replace up front, Kyogo Furuhashi, he has maybe not quite the same pressing engine as Dyson and Kyogo have shown, but he's certainly got the minerals to do that. Because he's playing in midfield, he's very combative, he goes box to box, he's still scoring goals and creating assists. In the last year, he's had 36 matches from the start, 5 goals, 5 assists, and over that time he's played in a variety of positions, including defensive midfielder as well as up front and a wide forward. His stats, his ratings are good in spells. Vancouver are now in a really good space. They're in the Champions League semi-finals. In their first leg, they're beating Miami, so they might even go all the way to the final this year. But Pedro Vite, alongside Ryan Gauld, by the way, has been one of their main players, one of their main match winners. And this is a player that I think could be a great midfielder for us potentially, but could also maybe even develop into a very good forward because of that engine he has, as well as that clear eye for goal. And like I say, a very credible Ecuador international in the Ecuador squad at the moment, with the likes of Caicedo and one or two others. Pedro Vite, I would add into that, is in a little bit of a golden generation, and they all have that same kind of physical presence hallmark to them all, where they're all very robust, very powerful, and they've got a good football IQ on them, So Pedro Vite is a player that I've got a very high opinion of, and I think would be a very good versatile signing for us. It would actually tick a few different boxes. We know how Celtic love to buy 2 players for the price of 1, and I think Pedro Vite could be one of those guys. He's got a Canadian Cup, which doesn't really mean he's got 3 Canadian Cups. They don't really mean too much, to be honest with you. He's won the championship in Ecuador, and he's won that under-20 Copa Libertadores. He is now listed and recognised as a central midfielder, but he's very much an attacking-based player. He's left-footed. He's only rated at €5 million. And, with his now he's getting more senior international exposure since he's been capped in 2023, which is only 2 years ago. He's got 6 caps, 1 goal, so he's just breaking into that senior picture, having moved to Vancouver from Independiente Valle for €2 million. It feels like he's a guy that's maybe went under the radar of the European scouts and subsequently he's ended up in North America, but this could be a good kind of jumping point for him to move into Europe, and he fits the bill of so much of what we would like to add into the squad from a midfield perspective, and even as a cover forward or an alternate forward. You know, he could maybe develop to be that arrowhead guy. We get Dejan back on the left and we've got great competition on the other wing with Quinn and Djordje. But with the likes of Sondre, Orjaster and Kvitsgaard, some of these guys that we've still been linked to, they've been quite wingery based forwards. And again, similar to the likes of Balakwisha and a few of the other traits and trends that we've been seeing with Celtic's expected business, the rumour mill business, is when we are going into these smaller leagues, we're going right to the top of the food chain. And if we were to do that with MLS, Gabriel Pec would be an absolutely magic player for us to try and get over the line. Now, I wouldn't have thought this would have been likely possible or on the cards. Maybe even 4 or 5 months ago. LA Galaxy just won MLS Cup, and Ricky Puig, not really Marco Reus, he was there obviously, but Ricky Puig and Gabriel Pec were the big part of that, and the likes of Arsenal and a lot of big teams in Europe were seriously considering taking Pec on. Ricky Puig was like 24 from Barcelona, done his ACL, and LA Galaxy have just been a different team without him. They're really missing him big time. And Pec hasn't really stepped up to the plate to be that match winner, that decisive player still. And I think that has scared a lot of scouts away. As you can see, when he is fully fit and firing, it felt like a one-man team. He was absolutely unstoppable. He was rinsing every team in the league for fun on a weekly basis. And there was some really big transfer fees being reported for Gabriel Pec, Brazilian wonder kid, absolutely slaying it in America. But it's this little dip in form, or maybe where other people turn away from him now, where we could maybe steal a march on an opportunity here and bring in a player whose talent level would probably have been far too expensive for us to bring in a year ago, or even when LA brought him in from Brazil, they paid a few quid for him. But now, like I mentioned already in the video, if Europe calls, these guys jump. He wants to move to Europe. He's won MLS Cup. He's got youth caps for Brazil, and I think like Celtic might not be the clear favourites if we went in for him, but we would certainly be one of the biggest teams, I think, that would still be interested in signing him this summer. He's rated at 12 million euros. He's got 7 caps for the Brazil under 23s. His contract is pretty punchy. He is on a lot of money wages wise for MLS. He's a designated player, so it'll cost us a lot on transfer fee and on wages. But make no mistake about it, this is a guy that can lift the talent level in the squad, really push the competitive dynamic within the squad, and ultimately doesn't make us any worse. And because this player has had a previously much better looking reputation not that long ago, splashing into Europe with Celtic and, you know, hosing our league and doing well in the Champions League, he could very quickly realise those big money moves that have maybe disappeared now, and we could cash in on that. And I feel a very similar way about Dejan Joveljic. Now, he won MLS Cup with LA Galaxy last year, but because the way MLS works and it's got to be fair and balanced and all that, he had to move, he had to leave, and he went to the worst team in the league, and he's actually broke through his shell for me in the last couple of months. He was in Europe, he was a highly sought after wonder kid. Frankfurt and a bunch of other teams paid big money for him, and it didn't really work out in Europe. It took a while for it to work out for him in America. He's a big chess player as well, by the way. I'm a big fan of Joveljic, but I think over his latter half of the Galaxy career and what we're now seeing at Sporting Kansas City, who, make no mistake about it, in terms of calibre of squad, are one of the worst teams in the division, he's really cracked a nut. He's really broke through a kind of progression level, it feels like for me, where he's now creating and scoring goals all by himself. He's not just finishing chances that were made for him by the likes of Pec and Puig and whatever else, but he's actually became quite a formidable one-man attack and quite a poor squad. And as you can see, they're slowly trying to clamber some results and some goals together. And I think this kind of proof in the pudding that we're seeing at SKC would give me the confidence to bring him back to Europe and try and get him to be a really formidable Celtic striker. He's got a great engine on him, can do that pressing role as well, but this guy has bangers in him. This guy has techers. At 25 years of age, this is a lovely kind of player profile that Celtic love to exploit or tap into, and it's that wonder kid that's kind of fallen off the pedestal and needs kind of brought back up a few levels on the footballing pyramid, on the footballing food chain ladder, as it were, and he ticks all those boxes. I know he's just moved to SKC, but like I say, if Europe comes a calling, these guys will move. His transfer value is 5.5 million euros, which I think would be pretty easy to get over the line. He's won some stuff in Serbia, as well as MLS Cup previously, of course. His contract ends in 2027, and there is an option for a further year add-on. 7 caps for the senior Serbia team with 2 goals. That started off in 2021. He's been not really in the senior international picture too often, to be quite honest with you. But a very well decorated, and if you look at his younger youth career here, you can see where the wonder kid status came from. A guy that's been on the block for a little while, has a bit of versatility, can play wide forward as well. Although I think for Celtic he would be like a real good hybrid of like a Kyogo and an Ida type together, and could be next level for us. In that same kind of mould of the guy that maybe tried to break onto the scene in a decent league in Europe that didn't really work out for him is Djordje Mihailovic. Now, this is an attacking midfielder. Not really much more than you're going to get out of him than that. A maverick type player, if you like, to use that expression that's been on the airwaves the last week or two. He can play in those wide forward areas, but he's an attacking midfielder. I'm not too hyped on him. He moved to AZ in the Eredivisie and he did quite okay. He did quite, he did well enough without being spectacular. And he's moved back to America for the Colorado Rapids and he's been very exceptional for them. He's really getting back into some really good form. A goal scorer, a guy that creates chances for other people. Like I say, a playmaker, a real attacker. Did okay in Holland without being exceptional. And been ranked at €4 million could be a very Celtic friendly transfer fee for a guy at 26, 27. There's not going to be much of an unknown element around. Maybe not much of a, you're going to sell him on for 20 million either built into it. But a guy that could come in would be very motivated to kind of get a chapter of his career at a Champions League level club like us, and has that talent because, for attacking based players, you need guys that are capable of just unlocking the door, pulling out a bit of magic, and he certainly has that, make no mistake about it. Teams have played decent transfer fees for him in the past. And although the Alkmaar period of his career wasn't his best, he still had some moments where he did actually play into that Eredivisie level of the team quite well. And it is Ed at this point, but to be frank as well, we're in no great position. I find it unlikely, but you never know. Similar to that, we've got Diego Luna, who is a maverick, is a talent, and can play all across the support and attack midfield positions, left mid, right mid, through the middle. 21 years of age, there's a lot of hype and a lot of promise around Diego Luna in MLS and with the men's senior national team, USMNT. Won't come cheap. I'm not too sure this is a guy we'll be actively pursuing unless we felt that he would be quite comfortable being in the squad, being in the machine. And it's funny because I heard some quotes from him about when he kind of kicked into gear over the last year. His manager, who is a veteran MLS player, told him that when you move to Europe, no one's going to pick you every week. You're going to need to fight for every minute you get on the pitch. And that's the attitude they've had with him in Salt Lake. And he's really earning his minutes. And he's really being a key player for them. A match winner, as you can rightly see here, at right mid and at left mid. But at 21, with a little bit less senior proven miles on the clock, €8 million might be a bit rich for our blood. But I think that would be a bit rich for a lot of teams. And I don't know if there'll be a lot of teams, going in at that type of fee to bring him in. He's got 4 senior caps for the men's national team. He's also maybe Mexican as well. So let's see how that develops. A right footer that mainly plays on the left. Contract is quite extensive because they value him as a prized asset. They're not going to let him walk out the door cheaply. Wee bit of Barca Academy experience as well. And yeah, would be a talent, would be a maverick, although I'm not too sure it would be that realistic. In a similar vein to some of these guys, talent, X-Factor guys that can unlock the door, attacking creative players that have some degree of versatility. I've been a big fan of Brian Gutierrez. Now, some injuries have kind of slowed him down, but he broke into the team at 18 as a winger and really looked like a Celtic winger, like a really, really good winger. But over the last 12 months, he's been much more effective in the number 10 position in attacking midfield. Chicago, right now, by the way, are spending tons of money. They've got one of the richest owners in football, I think, and they might sign Kevin De Bruyne. So they might not actually even pick up the phone for interested offers. But I've been a fan of this guy. Injuries have kind of slowed him down once or twice, but has raw ability, has raw talent, and is showing. Chicago Fire, I can't say this enough, have been minging for the last 5 years or something like that. They've been terrible, and he's been quite consistently a shining light for them, a bit of a match winner, and he passes the eye test. He has techers, he has talent. Is only rated at €4 million as well, 21 years of age, so lots of room for growth and development here. Contract isn't expiring anytime soon. Can play in those same kind of spots as we've seen with Diego Luna. And he's Chicago born and bred. He's an Illinois boy. He's playing for his hometown team. So maybe he's not too much of a rush if they're going to sign KDB, Kevin De Bruyne. But again, a player I'm interested in and I like the look of a lot. When it comes to defenders, there's not that many in MLS I would look to. I'm a big fan of Miles Robinson. He's clocked up as being one of the fastest players in the division this season. Recovery pace, right? But he's 28. I don't see Celtic being interested in him. Whereas we've got the likes of George Campbell, who is 5 years younger. He is like a mini version of Miles Robinson. He's like a mini version of Carter Vickers and Trusty put together. And I know that's maybe a bit lazy because of all the Americanness, right? But this guy is quick. This guy is tough. He plays for a rubbish team and is like a one-man defence. And, you know, he came through at Atlanta United, same as Miles Robinson, in fact, and looked really good. But again, the way MLS goes, a crap team take him to be one of their best players. And these numbers resemble Carter Vickers' output, Scales' trusty output for Celtic when we're dominating possession on teams. Montreal do not dominate anything. If anything, it's backs to the wall, defending, it's clearances, it's tackles, it's interceptions. This guy is hard-hitting, make no mistake about it. He's got a wee assist to his name as well, so if he does burst forward, you know, he's got the ability to play a pass. He's not a big numpty or anything like that. Last man tackles, goal line clearances. He is like a real defender's defender, and valued at 1.2 million euros. I think would be probably the best centre back we could buy per pound to fit into the Vickers trusty Scales dynamic to complete the 4 centre backs that we're going to run with for next season, and also maybe does open the door for, I've heard a lot of you guys talking about it, we've referenced it on one of the streams recently, but maybe Tierney coming in evolves us to a back three. And again, he would help with that no end. Can play both sides very capably. Has strength, has power, has pace, has everything going for him. And I think he can only get better, like I've said already. But probably the best prospect centre-back I've seen in MLS this year has been Noah Ealy. I think that's how you say it. He's Swedish. He's won the Swedish League. He plays for New York Red Bulls. So, you know, we know Red Bulls know how to talent ID, know how to find a player. And he's been really effective, really fun to watch. And he does that thing that we're missing, that Van Dijk and Denier and Ayer used to be great at, carrying the ball up the pitch through the ranks, through the levels. The Red Bulls got to MLS Cup final last year, so they should be good, but they're kind of not. And he has been one of their better players, which for a centre-back in a Red Bulls team doesn't mean that it's a good Red Bulls team, probably, which it isn't. He's right-footed, but can play on the left or on the right of a back three or of a back four, and, you know, is like a football player, very tall as well, good in the air, and, you know, like we've seen in Sweden and in MLS, like they're both very physical, demanding leagues. Good football IQ is required. And for a team that are conceding lots of chances and ultimately a lot of goals, he's been asked to do a lot of defensive work. But he's shown in the games I've watched him that he's actually very good on the ball as well. And, you know, George Campbell's good on the ball as well, don't get me wrong. But a Sweden under-21 youth international, 22 years of age, that's rated about the same sort of transfer value, maybe just appeals to the Celtic scouts a little bit more. A very well-decorated Sweden youth international as well, of course. His contract is up in 2027, and like I mentioned, if Europe calls, these guys are moving, formerly of Malmo, of course, like we mentioned there. Now, I only added in some of the players that we featured in the video today. I didn't use any of the example guys in here, or even the likes of Djordje Mihailovic or Brian Gutierrez. I don't think they're likely. But we add in the likes of Eli and Campbell, Luna, Joveljic, Pec, Vite, Obed, Quinn, Sullivan, Jack McGlynn. I think that's a nice clutch of 9 players there. There's a few defenders, quite a lot of versatility across there. And really, the transfer values should be very appealing to Celtic. We've done very well with Alistair Johnson. And some of these guys show the similar types of hallmarks of like that kind of North American real athlete, I'll rise to the top, underdog story vibes, as well as having good bones, good credentials in their early careers so far, coming through good academies or playing for good national teams or having some success in the league already. And our transfer target list, shopping list, whatever, is now up to 80 players. Now, next week we'll cover another league. I think we'll almost certainly next week have to go to Asia to look at J and K. And then maybe after that, depending on how the rumour mill goes, we'll have a chance to take a step back and evaluate the hit list that we've got and try and rank it into top 3s and top 5s, that sort of thing. On screen are now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the video for more content like this as well, of course. Get into the comment section, let me know your thoughts and feelings. Hail, hail, and won the hoops.